Everyone loves football.
It's a Zach Gelb Show. Football Friday on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
All right, Sunday, 4:25. We're getting closer and closer. In Seattle at CenturyLink Field, Eagles and Seahawks, a big litmus test game for the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll see how good they are against one of the best teams in the league. I think they're the best team in the NFC. Now joining us on the hotline, played in the NFL from 1993 to 2006. He was actually the first quarterback as a kid, a young Patriot fan, that I grew up rooting for, and that is Drew Bledsoe, who joins us right now on the Zach Gelb Show. Drew, it's an honor to talk to you. Thanks for a few minutes, and how are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. Hey, thanks for being a fan. You know, you make me feel old when you tell me that stuff, man, when you're growing up and you're a fan, but appreciate it regardless.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I know. That's what sometimes I realize on this show when I get the guys that I grew up rooting for. They always say you make me feel old. How you feeling, though, after all the years you played in the National Football League?
You know, I'm one of the lucky ones, man. I got out with all my pieces and parts intact for the most part. I had the one really bad injury that allowed Tommy to come in up there in New England, but that one, you know, it wasn't orthopedic. It was, you know, it was pretty dangerous, but once it healed up, I was all good. So yeah, man, I'm actually just getting ready to work out a little bit out here in Oregon, and everything's good, man. Life is good.
I absolutely love Oregon. I was out there last year, and I went to Multnomah Falls for a hike. I love Oregon. It's one of the best parts in the country.
Yeah, Northwest is pretty solid. We were glad we got to spend some time in the Northeast, but then we always knew we'd come back to the Northwest, and now the Eagles the birds are coming out here to take on the other birds, the Northwest birds. Man, it should be a good one this weekend. It looks like the Seahawks are getting healthy and playing tough, so it'll be a big game for the Eagles, but it should be. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a great one to watch.
No question. Before we get to the Eagles and Seahawks, a big story in the National Football League this week and really all season long has been Dak Prescott and Tony Romo. You mentioned the gruesome injury that you suffered when Mo Lewis hit you when the Jets were playing the Patriots. Tom Brady comes in, wins a Super Bowl. The rest is history. You saw what Tony Romo had to say this week. How do you think he's handling this tough situation?
You know, I think he's handling it very well. You know, when I didn't choose to read a statement. You know, he chose to put his words down so he was could really control the message. But I think he's handling a very, very difficult situation in a really classy way. People have to understand how hard this thing is as a quarterback because you have completely conflicting emotions. You know, you're very, very happy for your team. You know, you want team success. That's what you're in it for, and so you're cheering for your guys. But at the same time, man, it just rips your heart out that the team's having success, and you got to sit on the sidelines and watch. I went through that in New England, and it's a tough situation to go through. It really is, and I think the way that Tony is handling it will pay dividends for him down the road, whether that's with another franchise or just whether that's in his post-career life. Just people are going to understand that he's a classy individual that put his team first. When
you were going in that situation with New England, and yes, the team was winning, and Bill had that decision, and Bill, he'll make a decision and then he'll move on from there. But really, with that decision that happened, you went from being the man in New England then to a backup quarterback. What did guys say to you in the locker room? Because you were their leader for so many years.
And I still was, at that point for the rest of that season. And Tony will still be a leader on that team in Dallas. And I think that with the benefit of hindsight, I understand now that it really was important that that I put the team first in that situation and didn't cause any divide in the locker room, because obviously there were going to be guys that were in my camp that I'd been with for a number of years, and the same with Tony. There are a lot of guys down there that if he decided to be divisive, there are guys that would go with him, and it could divide the locker room. And so it really is important that you do that, and Tony will continue to be a leader for the Cowboys. I've maintained a strong leadership role with the Patriots and throughout the rest of that championship season.
You know Tony Romo very well for your time that you spent in Dallas. Have you talked to him? And if not, what would you say to him? What advice would you give to him going through something that you're very well familiar with that he's going through right now?
We exchanged some text messages a couple days ago, and I just told him congrats on the way he's handling things. And, the biggest message that I would share with him if we sat down and talked is, once you get through this deal, when you go to work make sure you enjoy it. I mean, I've said oftentimes, and I try to say this whenever I can. We've won the lottery. I mean, you get to play a professional sport. For a living into your mid-30s. That's most kids' childhood dream, and so for any of us to claim that something's not fair is really misguided. You're very, very fortunate to have the privilege to do that. And so I just told him, hey, look, man, make sure you enjoy it. Go have fun, go run some scout team. Go to work with a smile on your face, and because when all of us that played the game, you get out for a number of years, and man, you'd give almost anything to go back for just one more game, and and just have that feeling one last time. So hopefully he's going to find his way through it and can enjoy the rest of this year, and then enjoy whatever comes to pass in the future.
And sometimes people forget this, unless if you're a big Patriot fan like myself. Even though you weren't on the field since Brady came back in, you did have to at one time come in relief, and that was in the AFC Championship game of all places. And you delivered a big touchdown drive in that game. So how did you continue to just get yourself ready for a situation like that? Because I know we don't want to see injuries, but Tony Romo's one bad hit away from Dak Prescott to get him back in at the starting quarterback position.
Well, it was a little bit different for me. It was harder to get into that role because I had never done it. Really from the time I was about 14 years old, I'd been the starter at every level, and I'd never had the experience except for a few games when I was a freshman in college. And so it was a big adjustment for me. Now Tony was a backup for a few years before he took over down there, and so he kind of maybe knows that role or can remember that role a little bit better. But it's hard. It's hard to put the same energy into it during the week when you don't have that reward at the end of the week of getting to go on the field. But ultimately, it is, in spite of the fact that it's a game, it's a job, and you go and you do the work and you prepare yourself so that if you're called upon, you can step in and go.
It's also about the situation. The Cowboys, really good team. That Patriot team that Brady took over for, clearly a really good team. With Tom Brady, though, I've talked to Kevin Falk about this before, and I said, did you guys know he'd be this good at the time? And he said, Zach, we knew he would be a good quarterback. We didn't think he'd be this good and be great. When did you know that Tom was going to be a great quarterback?
I figured the guy works really hard and a really smart guy, and he paid attention. He was like that little dog that's next to you, man, just pestering you for all the time for information. But I figured he'd be in the league for a long time. I figured he'd bounce around as a backup quarterback, and then maybe at some point get a chance to start. But when he stepped in, he really did a nice job and has continued to be a great leader for that great organization. But the one thing I think that people have to realize about what's going on with Dak Prescott down there in Dallas, and it was a little bit similar to what happened in New England. He's in a situation down there where they're playing great football around him. For a quarterback, if your team's playing very good defense, which that's been the biggest surprise with the Cowboys this year is the strides their defense has made. If you're running the ball effectively so that you're in manageable situations and you don't have to throw and come from behind, and you can throw it when you want to throw it, not when you have to throw it. All of those things, it's a really good situation for the quarterback. So Dak has done a great job, but he's also been the beneficiary of a team that was really ready to go.
Drew Bledsoe with us right now. All right, let's get to this Eagles-Seahawks game. What have been your impressions so far on the rookie quarterback, the sensation in Carson Wentz?
When I watch these young quarterbacks, there are times where you can watch a guy who's putting up stats and numbers and so on, and you look at it and you're like, okay, well, he's really kind of just executing the offense, and there's really nothing special there. But with Carson, the kinds of throws that he's making and the accuracy that he has, his pocket movement and adjustment and his ability to throw while he's on the move, all of those things are really next level stuff. And he looks to me like he's a guy that can be a cornerstone for that franchise for many, many years to come. And he's a guy that I think the Eagles can really build around and become a real power in the NFC with that guy as the trigger guy.
And that's the key. They got to build around him, because it's remarkable that the Eagles are at 5 wins, and I watch them each and every week. They don't have a lot of talent on that offensive side of the ball, and he's just finding ways to create plays with the wide receiving core that's not that good, Drew.
He's just doing a lot of great stuff. And when I watch quarterbacks, I look at ball placement. Where do guys catch the ball? Do they catch it, in a good spot where they can continue to run? Is the quarterback throwing them away from the defense and throwing them open with his throws? And he's doing all of those things really well. And then, I've got to send a quick shout out to my good buddy John Dornbos, who just re-signed with the Eagles. But I talked to him a little while back about what the kid's like, and he said he's just a kid that has his head squared on, or head screwed on squarely, and he just is a great locker room guy, really humble, hardworking, all of those things that you want him to be, and you put that together with the physical abilities that he has, and I think that the Eagles are in a really good place with the kid.
I love John Dornbos. I always love when you have a good long snapper. Like when you guys were in New England, you had Lonnie Paxton. And with Dornbos, did you know he was this good at the magic tricks? Because what he did on America's Got Talent was just unbelievable, Drew.
We were together in Buffalo, and during training camp, he would come in. We would go into one of our dorm rooms at St. John Fisher during training camp, and he would sit down with a deck of cards night after night, and we would all sit and watch him like up close, as close as you can watch him, and try to catch him and try to figure out what he was doing. And the guy would just blow everybody's mind all the time, and he's continued to get better. I got to spend a little time with him, over the off season, and and he loves to do it. You throw him a deck of cards, and next thing you know, you got people running out of the room because they're just completely freaked out. So yeah, he was a guy that was always just great to be around, and then he would just freak people out with his magic whenever he chose to.
That's great. We're spending a few more minutes with Drew Bledsoe, the former NFL quarterback. Drew, this LOB, I saw them up close and personal last weekend. I was at that Patriots-Seahawks game, and we know they've been a very dominant secondary for a very long time in the National Football League. If you were playing on Sunday from an Eagles perspective and you don't have a lot of talent around you, how would you try to go about approaching the LOB and having some success against them?
Oh man, it's tough. It's really tough. They don't give you a lot of room. You have to be super accurate with what you do. But I think if I were going to try and do one thing in particular against that secondary, is I would try to take a few shots down the field each quarter. Try to go over the top, see if you can't hit a big play on them or get a big pass interference. Because I do think that against that defense, they're good enough that just dinking and dunking them is not going to put points on the board. I think you're going to have to go and make a few big plays here and there.
And then from the LOB side and that entire defense, I think their number one point of emphasis is going to be to take the run away from the Eagles this week. The Eagles don't have a dominant run game, but we saw what it could do last week. And when you have a rookie quarterback going into that atmosphere, you kind of want him to throw the football up a lot, because I have to imagine that these Seahawks secondary members are probably just licking their chops looking at the wide receivers that we have here in Philadelphia.
Well, if you can force a team to be one-dimensional, you're always going to be effective. If you allow a team to have balance, then they make it really hard on you. I would imagine they're going to try and shut down that run game. But again, that leaves generally some man coverage, one-on-one opportunities, which you're not going to hit them all. There's some great secondary players, but I think when they're going to do that, you've got to take a shot or two down the field. I think the one thing that can't be overstated with the Seahawks with their defense, and we've seen it 2 years in a row, is the impact of Cam Chancellor. When he was out, start of the season last year, that Seahawks defense wasn't nearly as dominant. Missed a few games this season, but came back against the Patriots, and he is such a presence in that secondary. He can cover, got downfield, but he's an extra linebacker that comes up and stuffs the running game. So it makes it really tough sledding against that defense.
All right, well, let's get to Russell Wilson, because I'm always just so impressed every time I see him. And we could kind of link Russell Wilson and Eli Manning together in this one, because both of these offenses struggled earlier in the season, but now their teams are clicking and they're in a good spot, both Russell Wilson and Eli Manning in the NFC. When you're a quarterback and you get off to a slow start and things aren't going right earlier in the season, how do you block it out to just get that ball rolling and get things going towards the end of the season?
Well, you got to maintain your confidence, not only in yourself but in the guys around you. And I think one of the things that happened with the Seahawks is I think they're starting to get healthy up front. They've been banged up a little bit in their offensive line, and when that happens, then everything's hard. But I think they're starting to do that, and then Russell himself is getting healthy, so he can move around and make some of those, those unique on the move plays that he makes that can be game changers. In any game, that one big third down conversion that he runs forward. Those kinds of things can really make a difference. So the fact that they're getting healthy, I think, really is really what's going on with the Seahawks. They were struggling a little bit early, but I think it was partly due to they're just missing some of their personnel.
So you see Russell Wilson and Eli, they were able to figure it out. Aaron Rodgers in the NFC, that Packers team's the biggest enigma to me at 4-5 right now. And there was a report, and I don't usually like to get into this personal stuff, but there was a report today that Aaron Rodgers hasn't spoke to some of his family members in 2 years. He skipped his grandfather's funeral. Looks like an ugly situation out in Green Bay for Aaron Rodgers. Just as someone that's played the game of quarterback and played that position so well, what do you think's going on with the Packers and Rodgers right now?
I truly don't know. Aaron's a guy that I have a ton of respect for. He's a great guy, truly one of the great quarterbacks in the league. But I haven't studied enough to really know exactly what's going on out there. But something's not right, obviously, because Aaron has been such a great player for so long, and for their organization to be 4-5, that really is shocking to me.
Well, I know something you do study is Washington State, where you went to college. Big game this weekend, Washington State versus Colorado.
Big one, man. My brother went to Colorado, so we got the little family rivalry this
how about
weekend.
That?
So we got it's a big one. My Cougs, I think they're like 15-2 against the Pac-12 the last couple of years, but they're 0-2 against the Big Sky, against these FCS teams. If they hadn't lost to Eastern Washington to start the year this year, they might be part of a different conversation right now rather than just the Pac-12 conversation, which would be a lot of fun. But they're playing great football. They have a great quarterback in Luke Falk that, looks like he's probably going to be a great pro. Hopefully not for a couple more years. But yeah, they really got it clicking, and they're playing good defense too.
Well, I know how you're going to be enjoying your Saturday. Hopefully Washington State has the upset against Colorado. But when you're watching the game, I'm sure you'll be enjoying some delicious wine of yours. Tell me a little bit about your wine, Drew.
It's been so fun, man. Since I retired, we started this wine business. Got to go back to my hometown, this little town with a funny name, and Walla Walla, Washington, and just some great wine grapes coming out of our valley there that we're turning into what we think is truly world class wine. Anybody that wants to check it out, it's called Doubleback. The story simply is that I grew up there, went off and played ball, and then doubled back and came back home. And we've got. We got a little holiday thing going on. We decided to be in the spirit of the holidays to be kind to our customers. So we're shipping wine for free. Our family wine, which is our second label, we're shipping for free for a few weeks so people can enjoy that with their family around the holidays.
It's amazing how many former players or coaches in the NFL are in the wine business. I'm pretty friendly with Damon Ewart, and he always talks smack about his wine. Dan Marino has some wine with Damon, and Dick Vermeil has wine. So do some smack talking back. Why is your wine the best?
Yeah, we've actually got Damon and I have a dinner that we're doing together this Monday leading up to the Apple Cup, the Washington State game. Damon's obviously one of the all-time great Washington Huskies, and I played for the Cougs, and we got our big matchup. So we're gonna match up the wines in a little Apple Cup preview on Monday at a big dinner in Seattle, which will be a ton of fun. The other guy that's making some really killer wine is Rick Meyer down in he's making some great Cabernet down in Napa as well. So we got this little kind of quarterback wine club, and it's a lot of fun. And we get together and get to enjoy it and match them up. And of course, my wine's the best, of course. But they do a good job also.
Fine wine, baby. Drew, I always loved watching you play. It was so much fun seeing you play when I was growing up as a young kid. Made me scream a lot with all the touchdown passes that you did throw. So I appreciate the time today. This was a whole lot of fun. And let's do it again real soon. Have a great weekend.
Right on, man. Always good to talk to you, and we'll talk to you again soon.